latest episode of the Player2 Video Games Club. I'm Paul James, the host, and it was my month this week to bring the game to the boys. So I picked Darksiders 2, which you'll see right here. Darksiders 2 is a game that means a hell of a lot to me. It released in August 2012, a follow-up to the original game, Darksiders, surprise, surprise, which released in 2010. And basically what the Darksiders franchise is nothing original. It's quite derivative. It pulls on franchises such as The Legend of Zelda, God of War, Portal, and a range of others to basically pick out the best bits and form its own game that, while not unique, is quite a lot of fun. So I gave the game to Jay and Damo to play this month, and they'll shortly come to us with all their thoughts. If you're a fan of Darksiders 2 or want to learn a little bit more, well, you can pick up the game courtesy of the Definitive Edition that released on PS4 and Xbox One last year, or pick up the original, which you can find on PS3, Xbox 360, or even on PC, where it's readily available for purchase. Let us know what you think in the comments. Visit player2.net.au, and until next month, here's the podcast. Enjoy, and we'll see you later. Welcome to another entry of the Player2 Video Games Club. I'm your host, Paul James, and I'm joined again by Jay Parnas.
That's me.
Damo Cavalieri. And this is our first E3, or post-E3
Live long and
entry.
prosper. All right.
Nice. This is our first post-E3 entry, so we're a bit better off than we were this time a month ago.
Wow.
We're all
2 weeks
kind
ago?
of flat and tired. Yeah, stop your dating the episode. No, so
You just said a month. You know what? Let's move on.
since people saw it. Well played. So anyway, we're moving on from that. We're into a new month. This is your July entry for the Video Games Club. It was my choice this month. The game was Darksiders 2.
Ballsy to pick a sequel.
Firstly, what platforms did we play it all on?
I played it on the Xbox One.
So the Definitive Edition.
I refuse to say that, but it was the HD version.
I'm a tight ass, so I
More
just
HD.
stuck with my
OG.
OG fucking 360 version.
And I played it on PS3 and then also spent some time playing it on PS4 just to refresh myself with that Definitive Edition.
Before we jump into the questions and how we felt, what was the DLC in that game? Because I actually didn't look into that.
There was just a bunch of extra missions, similar structure
so
to
okay.
yeah, like it was.
So just side missions? Was there
Yeah,
any
that was just-
main story content?
Yeah, there was like story arcs to those
Okay.
ones, but
Yeah, right.
mostly just extra dungeons and those sorts of things that built around that.
Interesting.
But anyway,
I was
Darksiders
just
2.
curious because for me, like, it was just the game, so I didn't actually look into what was added. So I was just
No, that's fair enough. That's a thing that comes with those those kind of remastered collections and that bundle everything in there. You don't know what was the original game, you don't know what wasn't. So that's fair enough.
I mean, some games like Borderlands is pretty good at showing that, where it's like they're completely different zones and whatever, and they give you an extra cutscene and whatever. But it didn't really look like there was anything that gave you a signpost as to, hey,
No,
this
they just
was
built it in there.
Yeah, this was not in the original game. Have fun.
Yeah. Well, I guess first up, what do we think?
Jake can go first.
Yeah, I didn't like it much. Primarily because my copy was buggy. Like, it was fucked. Like, there was frame rate issues on a near constant basis. I had hard crashes to dashboard, which is like
Now, I'll give you that. I did have one of those in the remastered.
You did?
one. I had one.
unacceptable. Like, unacceptable in this day and age. Are you kidding?
No, I'd agree with that.
Especially for a HD remake. Like, I didn't see anything about that in the...
Years dungeon!
Yeah, it's like, unacceptable. I mean, look, it's a HD remake. You had a game already. Was the game known for having any hard crashes to dashboard?
No. When I went back to my...
How do you build bugs into your game? Like, that's not... Is that what definitive means? Like, now with more bugs? Like, definitive means we killed this game. Like,
I don't know what went on that front, because you first mentioned I didn't really run into too many issues playing the PS4 remastered version, but you first commented that your Xbox One version wasn't going too well. You'd done some research online, found other people making the same complaints, and then like half an hour later, I had my my one crash.
Yeah, but there was
I
so
went
much.
back and
There was frames that was bad. There was a little bit of screen tearing. There was input lag to the point that there were some times where there was no input registered at all. And I think that was to do with the frame
sound
rate.
bugs.
Oh yes, did I get the sound bugs?
Yeah, I saw that a lot.
There was music dropout. There was like a synchronization issue. It became like an old like 50s samurai flick where it was like fucking I would kill you, and then like their mouth would stop moving and their dialogue's still fucking going.
yeah, it's
like,
all really weird. So when you started commenting about those tech issues, I went and dug out the old review that I'd written for the game back when it first launched, back in 2012. And there's actually a point there where I'd commented on how well it did perform. So it's a massive backward step for this
I need to get that review off.
remaster or whatever. Yeah, I'm
but
sure I can dig it out.
we know that you've never been wrong. About the look of horror on your face. No,
It was a surprise when you mentioned it, only because I hadn't hit anything to that point on the PS4, and then I went back and read the review. I was like, this is meant to work. What the hell's happened?
yeah, it didn't.
That's sad. That's sad.
And it is
It definitely
prone to happen when it goes from platform to platform,
I think that's
or from generation to generation, I should say, but it shouldn't.
But how long's it been out for now? Like
Since the original game.
No, the definitive.
definitive.
It was sometime last year. No, it was the 2015.
And so there's no patch. There's been no patch to fix these.
There's been patches.
Yeah, well, because I read about the patch saying, like, they were supposed to fix the sound, and like the outrage on game FAQs was just like, did the patch do anything? Can someone tell me? Like, there was a lot of rage going on from there. And look, don't let that dishearten you at all in purchasing this game. Just go back, get the 360 version, man.
No, don't do that. Do what the internet's saying. Buy the original version on the PC. The reason for that is because the frame rate is a lot better on the PC, and it runs. And that's the thing. Like what I was reading from a lot of sources,
I'm going to do that.
Is because it's locked at 30 on the consoles.
Oh, really?
It's locked at 30 on the HD. Yeah, and it still can't manage. Like you got a whole generation leap, and it's locked at 30.
Tech and it's gone back.
And it's gone backwards. Yeah. So, but on the PC, you can unlock the frame rate and
OpenGL.
Well, I don't even think that. I think it's part of the options in the game itself. And it runs better, it looks better, and there's less issues.
It's going to be the first game that I'm going to play 3 times in a row. Jesus!
Oh, how many times have you played Zone of the Enders?
Okay,
How many times have you played Borderlands? We can do this now.
Okay.
I mean, you're almost up to that on Fire Emblem now. It's
and we're not even doing it for a game.
yeah.
Yet.
Okay. So, anything else?
No, I mean,
I will hurt you.
It is a little. That'd be his choice.
I will hurt both of you.
It's a little bit odd that sort of stuff is an issue. It shouldn't really be going on in a next gen.
This was like for me. This was
visually
like
it's upgraded.
This was
visually looks
Assassin's
sharp.
Creed.
Oh, yeah,
This was
looks
Assassin's
nice.
Creed Unity bad. Like the frame rate issues that they were having, like that.
Yeah, it's all a bit weird. I mean, yeah.
And this has been patched. Like at least they managed to patch that stuff out.
Yeah.
I mean, it took them the better part of a year, but
Which
we're post.
Unity still.
Yeah.
I waited a year before I played it. Just
And like we're post. We're over a year after it came out, approximately. Yeah.
closing in on it. Yeah.
It's not fixed.
It's not good enough if you're running.
And like
that.
what concerns me the most is if it has been patched, how bad was it at release?
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, like, and look, that's not a shots fired thing. I'm just straight up concerned. Like, if they've patched the Xbox One, and I had still this many issues, like, how bad was it? Anyway,
so kind of moving on to the game itself, though. Damo,
Yes.
you and I both actually played it when it came out back in 2012.
Yeah, man.
Like I said, I did the review for it, but the general premise for both Darksiders games, and they run parallel to one another, Darksiders 1 and Darksiders 2. In the original game, War had been sent to Earth the apocalypse had started early. He
Apparently triggered.
Apparently he triggered it. There was a whole bunch of controversy around that.
Well, 'cause
how
that's-
and whether he was actually responsible.
That's
blah,
the whole
blah, blah,
idea
blah.
of like when the four horsemen ride. That's the sign of the start of the apocalypse.
Yeah.
That's what it's supposed to be.
And
But
so
it's-
basically in this sequel, Death is looking to
For
prove his innocence.
Yeah.
To prove
With
I don't
the
know.
evidence to
That's
prove
what
his
people
brother.
say when they give the. That's not what he's trying to do. He's trying to absolve him. What Death's trying to do,
Don't
and
go into too much detail. That's
it's within. If it's within the first 10 minutes of the game, then it's a startup, and that's fine.
yeah.
He's trying to restore humanity to Earth to kind of undo the damage that starting the apocalypse did.
Yeah.
Basically, so that's because he does believe that his brother was framed or is innocent or what have you, but he's trying to undo the damage so that the punishment will not be there.
Yeah. And that premise itself, what do you think of it?
Oh, I mean,
Without us going into too much
I loved
Death
it.
story-wise.
I absolutely loved it. Like, I mean, can we talk about like just the gameplay for just a moment there?
I actually, when I said like in terms of my opinions of the game, all I talked about was just that there were bugs. I didn't actually tell you about like my opinion of the game. So yeah, you go through that, and I'd like.
So
to
like I loved like the fact that like Darksiders 1, War was a very big, bulky kind of character, real
massive
kind
turning
of
circles,
tanky
all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
brawler, and then we jump to this, and Death's just like in his rags, shirtless, no mouth. That's Death.
It's a mask though, isn't it?
It's a
You
mask.
can see him talking.
Yeah.
There's a bit of movement going on behind that thing.
Yeah, but
But let's be honest, he's
straight away you realise
he's
that
the original Deadpool from the Wolverine movies. Welcome to that.
he's much more
Wolf
athletical.
Sanders.
He's slim. He's jumping around. His movements are very different. He's a lot
Jack
quicker. I mean, there's just a couple of points that I even remember from your review. Like, and I was like, yeah, that's it. That's exactly what was it. It was so. Though it was like the same kind of game because they're running parallel. The character difference changed the elements in a very good way, but you still felt like you're playing a Darksiders game, which was great. It's like a sequel with a different character. I mean, what can I say about it? Like,
Can I say
he's
one
gross.
thing? The sound effect of Death climbing up a wooden pole is a better horse riding sound than the actual
horse
sound that they use. I just like to point that out as a side. Like, if you do go and play that game, listen out for it and have a hearty chortle. Just be like, why didn't they use this sound? This is way better.
Could use two
It is seriously
coconuts.
like, yeah, that's what it sounds like. That is exactly what, which makes no sense because it's climbing up a wood. Anyway.
A wooden pole, yeah.
I felt that, look, for me, obviously the combat was marred because it wasn't fluid. It didn't feel fluid because there was so many frame drops and, like, input lag. And, like, I was telling Paul earlier today, I could count on my fingers how many times I did the, like, dodge. You know, when you do a dodge hit and you, like, hurt the enemy?
yeah.
And I guarantee you, 90% of those or more were not intended. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to get this counter hit now because I know what I'm doing.
It's
and I
just because
can.
of all those technical hiccups
Yeah.
you're having along the way.
Yeah, for sure. But in terms of the actual gameplay itself, I feel like it felt to me a little bit different to what I remember. And again, I didn't get to go back and play the original, but it felt less Zelda-y in terms of puzzles, like less like block moving and stuff. There were little puzzles, and they did have that sort of, oh, okay, I have to do this thing so I can do this other thing. It felt like it took less inspiration from Zelda and more inspiration from just like more generic platformer stuff. Or it's just like, okay, I know what... Because in Darksiders 1, from what I remember, it definitely had that aspect of like, okay, I've got the ability in this dungeon, now I need to use that ability in this dungeon to finish it. Does that ring true to you two?
Yeah.
Yeah. There was not that at all in this game. You got, what was it, 4 abilities I think we were talking about before?
The four tools.
Yeah, and you get them, like, you get the first one...
Half the gun.
Oh, yeah, I guess that is technically one of them.
The grip.
No, so that's the thing, the gun is technically, because so you can pop off stuff in the distance. So, I didn't count that
Yeah, because
as
you're
one.
shooting
'Cause
those
it's a
kind of explodey balls.
Yeah, that's right. The first one that I thought was that, and you get that after more than halfway through the game.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yep, you get it towards.
Just feels like
You
you
got
get
the death grip.
Yeah, the death grip. Yeah, you get that towards the end of the first zone, and there are 2 zones, or maybe a small. There's 3 actually.
Yeah.
3. But the last one's tiny. It's like
It's just kind of here's your where everything ramps up. Finish.
yeah. So yeah,
And
and like
encourage you. The other 2 areas are huge.
yeah, no, they are big,
Massive.
a little empty, but big nonetheless.
No, to your point about it being empty, like you're right, and I think that there is perhaps Darksiders 2 was probably a victim of what a few games at that particular time were victims of, where they had these massive open worlds. We're all starting to move towards open worlds but they're not super densely populated, and that it's not the only game that's had that issue. But sometimes you can go too far the other way. And
I think that was not that there was a bad thing, like
because the world's beautiful. So
that's true. But also just like that overarching, villain that's hurting the world. Like maybe it was accidental that they created this world and it's vastly empty, but like having that in there and that overarching villain, it's kind of like ooh,
so
like is that like a
so when I say empty, I'm not necessarily talking about population.
yeah.
I'm talking about there were huge expanses with just nothing. It was just like it is just scenery. Like there were a few little spots where it's like, oh look, I can climb up here and I can do a thing and whatever, but there wasn't very much.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like I understand what you're saying in terms of there was like a speckle of enemies.
Yeah.
Like there was little patches of there are those, but there's not very much. And yes, if you want to go from like a canonical view, that you could totally swing it that way.
Yeah.
But that's not what I mean.
Yeah.
I just mean that there's like very little to do in the open environment. There's stuff.
I mean, it's good that they gave you fast travel options, which is always handy.
What did it bug out? You click somewhere and it took you somewhere else.
No, there was like huge patches of the game where it's like fast travel is unavailable.
Oh, if you're buried in one of those dungeons, it's a thing. But
No, it's not. Actually, it's not. If you're in one of the dungeons and you port out, it actually gives you a
teleport
teleport.
you can return to.
Yes, and cool fact about that I found is you can have multiple markers, 1 per realm.
Yeah.
So if you're I was actually in a dungeon in the first area that was at the Forge Lands.
Yeah.
Forge Land.
And so I was doing. Come on, son.
Yeah, my bad.
I was in a dungeon in one of them. It was like one of these sort of. I think it might have been a DLC one or something like that. And I was way under leveled. I didn't realize, which I think is really poor on the game. The game should scale, I think. It should gate you from progress, but it was really annoying because I was like level 10 and all the enemies in there were like level 17. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's
So it must have been like a DLC thing that I wasn't aware of. And like because you were able to get in there, you just walk in there as soon as you got the death grip, which you get at around like 11, 12, something like that.
Yeah, in that ballpark.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh cool, I'll do this mission, easy. Went in there and I was just like, I had this particular weapon that was able to deal a lot of damage, but like, I copped a belting. Like one of the bigger enemies could like 2 hit me. And the dude with like the drill hand would get me like stun locked me into like from full health to death immediately.
leveling. That was cool. Having levels is
I thought
I'm starting to get some RPG elements into it.
fun.
But
but it was like it's only that stuff's only fun if putting your skill points in the tree is fun.
I know you didn't enjoy the skill tree.
No, so like I ended up with like 8 unused points because I'm just like I have nowhere to put these. I've leveled the things I want to level and that's it. Like I put a bunch of points into like the first ability, like all 3 points, because I wanted it to give me as much health back as I could, and then I upped its critical percentage and that was it. And then I got to the one where you did the big spin. And I'm like, all right, cool. This I can use to manage mobs and give it like increased critical. That's it. That was all I could do. Because there was nothing else.
It was still kind of bare bones. There's a lot they could do with it going forward.
I haven't quite cracked level 20, so I didn't get the bottom abilities unlocked.
Okay. So we've spoken about kind of Zelda and we've spoken about these RPG elements. I think the Darksiders franchise itself is quite derivative in that it takes from a lot of different franchises. So there's definitely clear Zelda influences. This one you start seeing RPG elements into it.
There was
God
loot.
of War and
There was loot in this game?
Portal are both things. Yeah, you start to see some loot popping up in this one, which ties into your, interchangeable weapons and
Yes.
and everything that goes with that, the RPG elements again. It takes from a lot of different franchises there, which is fine. I've got no issue with games being derivative. Not everyone can necessarily be innovating in that space or whatever, as long as you pull from the right games, the right franchises, and implement them in the right ways. Do you feel like, for the most part, they did that? Well, obviously, there's a couple little things, like you were talking about with the skill tree and whatnot, that have been an issue.
Look, they had a skill tree that was, like, it was interesting to see how the abilities would function. And it was nice that they put a fairly cheaply, decently accessible respec option.
Yeah.
So they did that, as far as I'm concerned, they did that right. It was laid out really weird.
Yeah, it had the Harbinger... Wait, I got it up. Sorry, if I'm on my tablet, just because... There's some things that I want to,
for sure. I know that you're a big
So we've
fan.
got the Harbinger tree, which was like the teleport and / harvest, unstoppable, and...
So those are the names of the abilities that you can...
they're like sub-trees.
On that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the thing.
Then there's the
about.
Necromancer tree, which is
And there's only 2
Exhume,
trees, so...
Aegis,
Yeah,
Murder,
overall.
and Frenzy.
I didn't spend much time in my second playthrough, and I honestly don't recall too much what I did in my original playthrough a few years back, but this second playthrough I've spent most of my time in that Harbinger tree. In fact, I haven't gone into the Necromancy one at all.
That was...
so that's the thing. Two very important things that you should be aware of. A, it doesn't function like a skill tree very much. And B, it is laid out in a kind of retarded fashion. So they split the skills up into the 2 zones that they fit into, but the progression is weird. You have to look very, very closely at the skill tree. You'll see lines. Yeah?
Yep.
But all over the tree, the different powers that you can get that you can then assign to like a button command, they're not predicated on you getting earlier powers. So for example, the first power that you unlock in the, let's say the Harbinger tree, because that's the one that all 3 of us are the most familiar with.
Yeah.
That's the first thing you unlock, right? And it's got a few abilities. It splinters off down, down again, but then from the second ability it splinters off to the left and then down again.
Yeah.
As you level up, you unlock extra abilities, but you don't need to have purchased many of the points or any of the points.
You could just jump straight to the end as long as you got the
That's
level
right.
requirement. You can just pick one from the right
which is
tree.
real weird because you don't really I didn't feel like I was actually progressing my character. I didn't feel like putting points.
You could be arguing also the other way, that you're picking and choosing what suits your playstyle. So I
But
want
I
to do this,
arguing.
but then I want to have the ability to. I want to have my little minions going out
But
doing
what
it,
I-
but then
what
I
I
want
mean-
the ability at the end to just take this ultimate badass sword swinging ability and just cave something.
And that's fine. But my point is, by putting points into the skill
Dealt with
tree.
those little guys, bang! It's over.
But what I'm trying to say is, by putting points into the skill tree, there was no progression of the skill tree.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
There was abilities, and you then were adding perks to those abilities.
Yeah.
It didn't function like a skill tree, because a skill tree is like it branches. You start off with a basic framework of, okay, this part of the skill tree is going to do this part of the skill tree is going to do that. Which one do you prefer? And then from there, you're slowly building on those abilities. Whereas instead, your level, raising your level, will open up individual attributes or powers that Death can use, and then you're adding perks to those powers. That's all it was. Which, it's deceptive. It looks like, oh cool, I've got this huge branching, I've got this one side or the other side. No, not at all. You could pick one ability right at the top of the Harbinger tree, and then if you're high enough level, a bottom ability on the other side of the tree. Mm-hmm. That's not how a skill tree works. Yeah. It was fine, I didn't mind, and again, that's what you had in the previous game. You had abilities that you got over time. And then I'm pretty sure you could power them up somehow.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It's fine to reuse that formula. Just Don't lie to me and say it's a skill tree, because it's not. They're just like
And then
your
something a
level.
bit from in reinventing the wheel. Like, there's obviously other games and other systems with skill trees that are in existence.
We're all very fluent with.
You know,
Yeah.
like D&D's been around for how many years, and they just kind of went. They probably tried something fresh, and for someone who's in love with skill trees, didn't appreciate it too much.
No, it's not that. It's just that it felt like fake character progression, because when you're putting points into a skill tree, you're building your character the way you want to build it. All I felt like I was doing was just unlocking the ability to use a new power. Does that make sense?
My hand hurts. Yeah, no, I get that.
I don't know. That's how I felt. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there were powers I tried about half of them out of the ones that I've unlocked, and I was
Some
like, maybe
didn't work for you. And...
yeah, like some were just like, maybe this might be useful, maybe it might not, and that's fine. But that's the thing. By the point that I was unlocking some of these, it was like, well, my weapons were kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. The loot was actually pretty decent in this game. There was good.
There's a lot of it.
There was, yes.
An excessive amount, but the loot though was good.
It was. What did you think about the loot?
I love the loot. The only problem I had with the loot was the possessed weapons. That they came. There was, to me, a possessed weapon should have been a dungeon hidden item instead of just a random drop. Because by the time I got my first possessed weapon, it was at such a weak level, and its max level was so weak that there was no possibility of me making it into a decent weapon. And
Really?
Yeah, it was.
Because
I think it was max level was like freaking 14 or something like that, and like my weapon was already at 14, and I was like, so I could pump in so much into this, and it's like, what's the point?
Were you putting weapons into it that were on level?
What do you mean on level?
So okay, so what level did you get the weapon at? Because when loot drops, it drops at your level. When loot drops, it's always on level.
No, that's not it.
Well, at least that's how it was in the copy.
Yeah, we did not. That was not the case.
Okay.
Like, you got lower weapon. Like, you got stuff that in the like, this possessed weapon was like level 1. It was absolute garbage.
Oh, okay.
When I first got it.
So I had the opposite experience. To the point that so I got my first possessed weapon in the drown. Yeah, was it the water place?
Yeah.
It's like the second area.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact name, but yeah, another one.
So you do the fire path, and then you do the water after that. That's where I got it.
Ooh.
I didn't even know possessed weapons were a thing. But so I was okay with them dropping legendary items with the special abilities. I was a little upset you couldn't graft the special ability onto your possessed weapon.
Yeah.
But from what I experienced, is that the possessed weapon was on level to start with. And then when you fed it stuff, every time it leveled up, it leveled a level beyond that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But it didn't have any issues with your equip setting. So it wouldn't push past your own level, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I could let's say I got it at level 9 and I leveled it up 3 times, but I was only level 9.
Yeah.
I would still be able to use it even though it was classed as level 12 or 13. That was
based on that initial level.
Yeah, that was my experience, and I like that you were able to graft abilities on it. So the last thing that you upgrade it with, if it pushes it over into a new level, what abilities that weapon had or that item had, you could then graft onto it. So I had the circumstance later. So what I did after I got my first possessed weapon, which I got to point out, it was a possessed scythe, which I called the Long Division because I am the funniest motherfucker that ever lived. Because it's like the scythe is long and you divide people, but also when you're like holding it, it's like it's a scythe divided in two. So it's like, it's funny, man. I'm just the best. Let's move on. So what I did from that point is I held in my inventory a whole bunch of specific items, and then I got later on another possessed weapon where I gave it huge crit chance, huge crit damage, and then health on crit.
Yeah.
And I basically was unstoppable. I was like, That's what I was saying to you before. I got into like a level 17 dungeon. I was like level, like not that by like 5 under, and I was still killing all the enemies.
Yeah.
Except for that one that was a
No. So I was able to kill those. It was when they like popped up in like a pair, and I'm just like, well, I could take it. Like I can stun lock you if I'm 1-on-1, but if I'm not, I'm wrecked. And again, with like input lag, it's just hard to dodge out of the way. But that was the thing. I actually loved possessed weapons. I just didn't feel that they dropped often enough.
Yeah. Oh no, don't get me wrong. I liked them too. Like it was just really annoying that my first one was such a low level and was just at such a late time. Like it was like,
yeah, that's unfortunate. Because that was one of my favorite.
I mean, I know
parts.
I get that it's a rare drop, so please don't.
So it's luck of the
don't
draw.
shoot me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, because you can buy them. You
Yeah.
can buy a random possessed item from Vulgrim.
Vulgar.
Yeah, it costs you a lot of money
That
and
one.
yeah, it's alright.
I liked it.
It's pretty good. So if you get, it's a bunch of tokens. It's like 30 tokens or something, and like 50k. But yeah, he'll give you it's a random possessed item, but it's a possessed item.
Yeah.
So you could do it that way instead. But
Yeah,
I
Towards the end, I had like a very decent possessed weapon.
Yeah, and that was the thing. Like I got 1, and then like nothing for ages, and then I got like 3. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Just back to back to back.
yeah. Like I got a possessed buckler, and then not long after that, I got a possessed set of claws.
Yeah.
And I pretty much leveled them.
Size in the end.
I actually really liked the buckler. It was awkward at first because they don't really teach you anything. Like there's no
No, they
there's
just kind of let you go out there and.
But there's no explanation as to what the weapons can do. So like the sub weapon has a charge to it, and every different type of weapon, whether it be fast or slow, has a different thing that they do when they charge. So the fists, you do like a big like haymaker and uppercut.
And yeah.
But the claws, if you're using actual claws, you actually do like a dash forward. And it doesn't do anything unless there's an enemy. If you hit an enemy, you'll do like this little like slashing combo. But with the buckler, because it's supposed to be kind of like an arm shield, you'll actually just stand there looking like an idiot if you hold it.
Oh, okay.
But if an enemy hits you, and then you let go, I think either let go or let go and press afterwards, you do like this big like hit. So they hit you, and then you respond. You actually will hit everyone in like a huge AoE type smash.
Oh, yeah,
And because I had a possessed one that had like a huge crit chance, I basically like if someone hit me, I'd be like pop, and everyone would just die. So there was cool stuff like that. I think the loot was one of the better parts of the game for me.
Okay, cool. What about the art style?
Fantastic. Like,
So it's led by the Darksiders franchise. Has been led by Joe
Madureira.
Thank you.
Got your back. Yeah.
He's been a comic book artist for years.
His art style's fantastic.
And-
I love it. What about you, Damo?
I love his
out
art
of the
style.
three of
And
us,
now that
we're-
I know that he's a comic book dude, freaking,
You're doing
I'll be
some
buying
more
some of his. No, stop. Engage you people, eh? You're the ones watching
He'll
this.
buy them all off camera later.
He's got a fantastic
world looks
style.
stunning.
Character design, like all the intricacy, like you can see it, like the character's armor and stuff like that. It has that level of intricacy that only really comic book stuff has.
Yeah.
Whereas video game, so I once read an art book where the different ways that they build a character is a video game character will be triangular, so they'll generally have smallish heads but larger feet. And
Yeah.
Sort of. Whereas like an anime character has like a very sort of like a large head, sort of small torso and large hands and feet, right? Whereas a comic book characters like the classic like superhero where it's like the inverted pyramid, where they've got tiny package and huge like biceps and torso.
Yeah.
This you could kind of see where it was like a mix of a lot of those.
All those, yeah.
Yeah, and it just looked really cool. Like dudes who were just like, I'm in the forge. Like I build things.
Oh, those makers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They look like fucking space marines. Like
They're massive. They do well in gears.
Yeah, they would do well in Warhammer 40k. Like they were fucking awesome. And then that's the thing. Like, it was just great
Yeah,
design.
the character design, the artistry behind the whole thing looked fantastic, and
The world too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
the worlds.
Yeah.
Like, you go to a few.
But yeah, the game
Yeah,
that you run around in is really well detailed.
The architecture was great too. Yeah.
And just the scale of the whole thing as well. So like if you just stand there in like the Forge Lands or alongside the makers and just look at the environment around you, like these massive sculptures.
Yeah, when you can turn the camera, it's not
Sorry.
like jittering like.
Yeah, no, again, we'll move on from your Turkish.
Yeah, no, I'm
but
just having a laugh.
at the same time, yeah, I mean
It's-
that does happen.
It's have a laugh or have a cry. So
Yeah,
whatever.
but at the same time, chugging or not, looking at the world around you.
It was very nice.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
It was very nice. There were a few little bits and pieces where there's one bit where some shit goes down in the Forge Lands and some of it gets set on fire a little bit. There were random bits of fire just floating in the air. Like, there was
attention to detail.
no on that front. Yeah, it was just again like there were visual bugs. It was
So
it was real sad because I really liked the first one.
yeah. So going forward a bit, I guess, dealing with. Right, did you have a point?
No. I'm just really excited to talk more about this.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
So
This
yeah,
is-
kind of
I love this.
going forward. Darksiders is going to continue. It was owned by THQ, who went bust back in 2012. It was then sold in 2013. It's been picked up by Nordic Games, who then
Put out
the definitive edition and the issues with that. But
No, I don't like the name. It's a really it's not
the
a funny
title. The
like,
title for that.
The Long Division.
editions.
That's a good pun. Definitive, not a good pun.
No, I think everyone agrees with you on that. That's not a good name. But so Joey Madureira, at that time, he's moved on to a new series. He's not with the new team working on the next Darksiders. He's started a studio called the Airship Syndicate and are working on a game called Battle Chasers.
I mean, you have to wonder
Which
what.
went up on Kickstarter last year or the year before or something
You
like
have
that.
to wonder though what creative license has got over the characters and if they'd probably bring him on as a consultant role or something.
Well, Nordic are working in a publishing way with him for Battle Chasers, so he just kind of bounce between teams and offer
there
his
would be no
artistic expertise with
which
no
he
cost, I
has,
imagine.
which he obviously has. I
Um,
mean, look at the game; it's fantastic.
But we haven't yet seen anything from the next Darksiders game. It was spoken about, like there was no footage or anything like that shown. But
It was talked about
it was
pre-THQ.
talked about, pre that closure. That the next game was going to be more cooperative, maybe, and now we're spitballing, but that possibly all 4 horsemen were playable, or 1 to 4, depending on how many players you had with you, and you could play that cooperatively, which would have been an interesting take, if nothing
As
else.
in, like multiple players.
Presumably, they didn't really go into too much
Sure.
detail. It could also be that you're just playing all 4, but it's bouncing between their stories. It was very open ended, and
Or you could do a
draw your
Killer
own
7
conclusions.
style where you could swap on the fly.
Let's not do anything Killer 7 style.
Yeah, that's a good game. No, it's a good game.
But
No, but you know,
one
like-
just bursts in the ground, another one takes over, and off you go.
I mean, that's how it
Could
works
be-
with the horses. Like,
They could do
So why not?
4 sword style.
So,
where it's-
Legend of Zelda, you just
where you're like controlling one and the other.
just flick between them.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's sort of what
That's
I mean.
kind of what you're
except-
getting at. Yeah.
Yeah, well, more like just having one horseman on screen at a time. Yours would be more like
Yeah, it'd be like a third person thing. You can
And then-
see the other. You can see him obviously do it like Mass Effect style in a sense, but more control.
But where do we think Darksiders should go?
Well, I think Darksiders should just get
Darksiders.
right off the.
Dark
Sorry,
I see Darksiders, Shane. You're gonna catch me.
So wait, sorry, what was
So
your question?
Where do
No,
you think
go on.
Darksiders should go
God, stop.
going forward?
The definitive edition.
I think. I mean, I don't want to see it cooperative.
No,
I
I
wanna
don't
see
think
it
that's the
go
right
on.
one. That's not the right one.
I want to see. I can
So
never remember. We just talked about.
Do we
the
revisit
names.
War or Death, or do we go and see
No,
Strife and
No, I think we.
Wrath?
No, it's not Wrath. Wrath is the whole
Strife
thing.
and Fury.
Fury.
Do we
Yes.
use them in standalone stories?
All I want to see is how you get the gun. I want to know why he dropped off the gun.
Why
Why?
that in the first one too, though? It was probably just a kickback.
Yeah, I know, but like, what's
just-
his game? What's his game plan? What's he?
I don't know.
What's he doing? Like, how does he know all this?
I don't know. He's a
why
member of
does
the
he-
NRA. He's trying to get people to use guns.
Because
Like,
how did he know that death was going to go
Murder.
there? Like, you know, this. There is though both games have their like overarching story of what's going on. They're both very separate from each other. There's not a lot of interaction between.
No,
Well,
it's
it is-
not
Yeah.
like the,
I mean, the comic
stories kind of
is
cross over,
where
but you don't.
you got most of the information about the other horsemen. Like,
yeah, that's true.
that'll
Yeah,
read.
that's true. Yeah, it's really good.
I just want to see what they look like. Oh,
I'm
in
pretty sure
action.
There,
Live
there
action.
was,
yeah,
there was,
they-
there's
they
art,
showed
that,
there's-
there's
there was
art that has them,
Yeah.
but that's the extent of it. But so
Do we maybe see like a past, like a time skip back in time to like?
I mean, I'd still like to go
Wars and
to.
stuff like that.
Nah, no, I'm not interested in that.
Really, not interested in the
Well, not in this game.
world building.
Like, I wanna know. Like, I mean, because
Leave it for DLC.
we can do, we've already conceived like hell, earth, heaven.
Yeah, there was no real
things like that.
touch on that in.
And like they made this different, area this time. And it's like maybe the next game there's an extra area, but they're revisiting parts that we didn't see of those other areas. I don't know where I'd like to see it go. Like, I mean, I've been happy where
Well,
it's taken it.
there's a lot of room for them to grow because
Let me-
those first two stories basically ran parallel. Sure, there was elements of merger at the end there, but we don't really have any sort of massive resolution. So
Let me
there's a lot
help
to do
you.
after that.
Let me help you. So that's where you wanted to go, or don't know where you wanted to go story wise.
Yeah.
Where do you want to see it go gameplay wise? Do you
Well-
want what do you want it to take from Darksiders 1? What do you want it to take from Darksiders 2? What do you want it to add that's brand new? What do you want it to twist? Well, what do you want the gameplay to do? Because at the end of the day, we're talking about a video game, not a movie or a comic book.
Gameplay, I would like. What's his name? Who's the guy with the gun? Strife?
Yeah.
Strife, Fury,
Strife.
Live.
Yeah, so Strife, I would love to see Strife be almost like a smuggler. Like, that sounds really weird, but anyone that plays RPGs
What's it
gets
mean?
kind of like what I'm trying to say there. Like, I want to see Strife be like this cool like guy, like kind of like he goes places and people are like, oh shit, that's him. Like,
You want him to do the
Just-
Kessler's run in under 12 parsecs?
yeah. Well, yeah, like, I mean, if anyone's ever seen the trailers for Knights of the Republic, they see, like, there's that really cool smuggler guy. Like, I mean, the gunslinger, but, like, maybe instead of having sights, maybe he's got short knives or something like that, blades. Like, he's just a really cool brawler.
So what you're saying
Not
is
super athletic.
you want him to be a
But-
Nephilim cowboy.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I'm pretty sure that's what he is, isn't it? Like, because he uses not like exclusively revolvers, yeah.
Yeah, and like I mean, maybe he's like the resource guy. Like maybe he just knows so much, and he's got contacts and here and there. But like, maybe he's the one that's trying to find out who who messed with death. Like who was there anyone else pulling the lines, or
So
maybe he was
gameplay
there.
wise, what does
Yeah, you
that?
keep going back to story.
What does that
Um,
mean
I-
in
I-
gameplay?
God just explained it. Like he's
Okay.
guns, he's knives, he's
Okay.
he's shooting. He's not super athletic, but he's not bulky as fuck.
What we're
He's a bit
seeing is
more
he's talking
range.
gameplay there, but he really wants to keep diving
Yeah,
into
I
the
know,
story,
right?
which is fine, because so do I really.
Like-
What do you want me to-
I see
As
a
in,
lot of
like,
what they've done.
what mechanics do you? How do you want the game?
Exactly the same, just with a different character.
Okay. So you want it to be more Dante from Devil May Cry, more gunplay, basically.
Well, yeah, the gunplay would be. I mean, if you're gonna have a guy with guns, there needs to be gunplay.
Sure.
But I mean, they need to make that work. That's
Yeah,
the
of
problem.
course.
Like,
I mean, they're not gonna
they
take
need
him
to
to a
be his
first-person shooter.
primary weapons. Like, I don't want this. Like, no, there he's kind of his subs. He actually had this like sword.
Actually,
It's like,
he uses a lasso because fucking
Yeah.
whatever.
I mean,
I get it.
if they're gonna go the other way and they're gonna use the other chick, then the exact same thing. Like she's got a whip, so a bit of ranged, but super.
It's got a-
like more athletic than death. Like
Ivy.
fast running, jumping, like real. Like I don't know.
Soul Calibur, Ivy. I get it.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'm with you, man. Whips.
Gameplay, yeah, I don't know.
I feel like they just need to refine a few of those elements. So your skill tree point is still valid, so they need to polish that up.
Good to know my points are still.
Sorry, it's one I agree with.
Yeah. I would like that character progression. I would like to see it like that they're building, rather than just, hey, I've got a new power that I can use.
Yeah. I think the puzzles were fine. Still keep pulling from those big franchises because they're all doing lots of things right. Zelda, God of War, Portal, they're all big for a reason.
Sure.
They've all had the impact that they have had for a reason.
Okay.
So that's fine. Like take more from that, but maybe a few original ideas thrown in for good measure. I don't know what they could be, honestly.
Okay.
But that's why I'm not a game fella. So
for me, I would love to see. So what I liked, the possessed weapons, as I said before, was for me that was the best. That was the best part of the loot. I think the loot should be equipment, so like not your weapons but like your armor and stuff.
Yeah.
I like having an armor number. I like seeing that number go up and knowing that okay, that means I'm going to be more able to resist stuff. What I think they should do is they should allow you to have multiple weapons interchangeable like they did in this game, but they should all function like a possessed weapon. They shouldn't have a cap, but you should just be able to burn shitty loot into your existing weapons. So you'll get like a set of to give you a parallel with like this game. Let's say you got a buckler, right? That's going to be the only buckler you're ever going to get, but you can modify it. And then, you can respec it and re-put points into it or whatever. And basically all of the equipment that you're burning into it will be like that weapon's experience. You're only going to get the one weapon of its type, but you're able to burn your equipment into it so that it is always as strong as you want. So you're not going to be getting a whole bunch of maces that you're never going to use because, hey, I only like to use fast weapons. You get one mace. If you want to level it, you level it. If you don't, you don't. It sits in your inventory, it does nothing. That's how I think they could really refine that. In terms of the combat, I think maybe a bit of range would be good. Because, both of the characters now, the only range they've had is from Strife or Fury. I can't remember which one it is. I think it is Strife. That's it. The gun that they randomly get, it does no damage.
It doesn't do much. It's mostly for puzzles and
because I was using it to extend my combo chains. But I think if you're going to inject something, don't necessarily just go the way of God of War. Go the way of Devil May Cry. I think having that sort of distance plus closing in and doing it up close and personal, I think that's a good mix that you want to have in combat. Yeah. I think maybe including some more obvious things in terms of parries and stuff like that. Make the combat deep. Give it some Bayonetta. Give it some of that. I don't necessarily want to be like, okay, if I press X, delay X, Y, X, X, Y, Y. I don't need huge combos like that. I think it was nice with what they had in this game, where there was like crossovers and stuff like that. A bit of launches, but somewhere where you can you actually feel like you're in control of the combat. You can manage mobs in the same way you can manage single enemies. In terms of the puzzles, I think you're right, but I think going back to the first Darksiders where you got an ability and that's where you from that point onwards, okay, I've got an ability, I've got a grapple hook.
Hitting on our viewers.
Oh, can't help it. It's just so attractive.
I've got a grapple hook. I've got this. You're collecting items. Maybe items of more significance, maybe story significance with those items as well. I think would be a good way to do that. In addition, it then allows you to. You're not going to get too stuck in that Zelda formula either, because your combat's different. You've got a big open world. And if you can tackle them in different orders, kind of like what they're trying to do with Zelda now, then so basically, look, what I really want from this game is a Metroidvania. If I'm going to be completely honest, I want them to be like...
Funny how often a franchise ends.
Yeah, weird. But
if you say
Metroidvania,
because if you kind of think about it, it's kind of there already. You can kind of see...
There's elements of it.
So the death grip is... It uses this
allows you to then go back and do this.
So you can see those little loop rings, those little metal rings. You can see it from the start. You don't know what they are, but you know that they're... So I want them to push harder on that as well.
Yeah.
Being able to... That's what I would really like.
Like a bit more value out of going back.
Exactly, yes. For sure. And because I think that's...
And sometimes that means you don't necessarily need to have as vast a world. like they've done.
True, but if it
There's more
does,
depth to those environments.
the thing that pissed me off is that it gated access to areas by making the enemies difficult to the point that you could not win. That's not fun. It's more fun for me to be like, hey, cool, I already did this dungeon, but I know that there was a few spots in that dungeon where there was this thing. I don't know what this thing is, but then later on I get this item that explains what those things are for, and it turns out that wasn't the whole dungeon. That was like a third of the dungeon, and the rest is hugely opened up, and I can get, I don't know, maybe something cool. Maybe that's where you start to get your possessed weapons or whatever. Yeah. And that's how you expand on the game. Like, and that gives you like this feeling that the world is living and breathing, and it's like it has existed long before you and will exist long after you've taken whatever treasure is in there. Which is
fair enough,
because the game has that. It has that like ancient beyond ancient type thing, and I think expanding in that way would be fantastic. So that like there's
the gameplay and Damo's lore side of things.
Exactly, and I think it's lore. Like there is a fantastic game with the composite parts of what the Darksiders franchise has. If they reordered it that way, I think they would gonna smash it forever.
There's a lot of room to grow.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think those would be the best ways for it to do that, because there are elements of backtracking, like going back and doing missions for other people, or being like, okay, now I can actually tackle this like legendary boss that I couldn't beat when you gave me the mission or whatever. Going back and doing all that stuff and being like, hey, there was that thing that I couldn't open before, or place I couldn't get to. That's fun.
Let me go back to that. Yeah,
exactly. And pushing you to do that like lightly, but sort of having the carrot there as well, where it's like, hey, you might get something really fucking shit hot there. Opening chests that are really like, that take you 10 minutes to figure out how to get to the chest. See it on your map, takes you 10 minutes to figure out how to get there, and then getting like fucking low level stuff.
Yeah.
Like white loot, the worst. Like, make a player incentivized.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But I guess we better wrap things up because we've been going for a fair while.
Yeah.
We'll presumably see more of Darksiders in the
just because we love it.
The studio's been quiet for quite some time. Presumably the definitive edition was a bit of a fundraising thing to get more money in the coffers for Darksiders 3
or at least
whatever
get the name back out there.
Yeah, hype.
I'm feeling a hype train.
So, I mean, in 2013 they said, and this was not long after the acquisition of the franchise, they said that don't expect to see anything for 2 years. That was last year. And I guess we got a remaster. But we're probably due. Probably information's not that far away, you can imagine. But we're yet to have heard anything. There's no whispers or anything like that as of yet. Darksiders 2, though. For me, it's still a thumbs up. I mean, I brought the game for a reason. I enjoy it. There's certainly some flaws there, but there's also a lot you can take from just looking at the franchise as well and seeing how other games, so your Zeldas and all those, have kind of informed others. It's really interesting to see those elements in there.
Yeah.
If you're going to play it, go play the original PS3, 360, or, as you said before,
PC
version.
Is the best one to get.
Perhaps throw in all these
Steam sales.
Because not performing all that well. It shouldn't be too hard to get price-wise.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe based on Jay's experiences and seemingly several others on the internet.
I'm in two minds. Like,
edition.
look, the bugs are bugs. Like, for me, that makes this copy of the game unacceptable. But
so that's okay. So go back.
Yeah. So, but the game as a whole, there's fantastic parts about it, and there's really like dog shit parts about it. And like I was saying, in the Darksiders franchise, there is like a landmark. Like, oh, you've cracked the code. There's bits of platforming. There's bits of like exploration, Metroidvania type stuff. There's your brawlery combat. Like it does. At the moment, it's a jack of all trades.
Master of none.
It could be a master of all if it was done well.
Yeah, and then that's the thing, that we haven't hit that big pinnacle moment yet, which is
exactly and
promising.
It absolutely could. I feel like, I mean, because you've already got the art direction, you've already got, as Damo has totally jizzed over the lore and the story. It's like those parts of the gameplay. It could absolutely be do a masterclass in like Zelda-ish dungeons and Metroidy, exploration and missions and overworld. Just like your Infamous or your Prototype or your Just Cause or whatever, with just your big open world with missions and collectibles, GTA, that type of stuff. And then just your basic like linear story and platforming and all that sort of stuff. It's got it all there. If it like tightened it and put the focus on the good stuff, you'd have a killer game.
Would you recommend people play Darksiders 2 though?
I would recommend they play Darksiders 1 and then Darksiders 2.
Yeah, Damo.
So, as you can tell from my face, I get because the V for victory and a thumb up. Like, I would give it double victory, but there was only one thing I had wrong with this game, and I should have brought it up earlier, but I completely forgot until we started talking about puzzles again. There was one portal puzzle, and unfortunately, and it didn't like ruin my gaming experience or anything. I just couldn't solve it for a very long time, and I had to YouTube it.
Oh, so pouting.
I was just pouting. Overall, I would highly suggest get into it. Play it. Give them more money.
There was
throw
really
money at them.
There was bad conveyance. There was some bad conveyance in this game. There was a few times where I'm like, what do I do? Where do I go? What is my puzzle? What even is the puzzle? Where am I supposed to be right now?
I don't know. Follow the crows.
Follow
the way the crow flies. Yes.
That crow was not helpful at all.
I liked him. He was a good pal.
It wasn't always great, but he didn't have to point you in the right
It
direction.
was alright that if you stood still for a while, it'd land on your shoulder. That was kind of cool.
Are we going to ask you a typical question, or are we kind of already answered it?
We've just kind of answered it, so that's kind of it there.
So I want a sequel, goddammit.
That's Darksiders 2. We're probably going to get a sequel. You can imagine, but otherwise, like if it's not like look into
Nordic,
Darksiders
that's what I have to
franchise,
say.
look into Battle Chasers because we know Battle Chasers is a thing that's happening. It's being Kickstarter funded, and it better not go the same way as Mighty Number 9. But that's a whole other aside.
Way to date the episode.
No, I'm just talking about how it's crap.
Yeah. You know what? That's true. It's been like that for years.
So, like, that's it.
the
We'll
way of
see you
Bloodstained.
next month, where it will be Damo's choice.
Which is
your
at
choice.
this point. We'll put it over here, what that choice is going to be.
It's a mystery game at the moment. I know what I'm selecting. I got
We
a
don't.
couple of choices. They don't know.
We've got no idea, so we'll know within minutes of this having aired.
I'll tweet it and I'll share it. I'll tag Player2.
It'll be random loop.
Yeah.
Just
So-
just open it up and hope it's not white.
Yeah,
Get excited.
right, that's it. So we'll see you next month for another episode of the Video Games Club. Make sure you've by now hopefully already had the opportunity to see all of this month's episodes are patched.
And all of that E3 coverage.
And all the E3 coverage from last month. There's been lots of good stuff. Make sure to tune in and have a look at it. So until next month, we'll see you later.
Well, next week, because, you know.
See ya.